Welcome to Global Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are back for our monthly seminar series, and today is another interesting day. We have a visiting scholar who is here on sabbatical to discuss a very interesting issue: misleading expressions in the renditions of subtitles, a syntactic analysis of subtitles in selected Yoruba movies. It's going to be handled by Dr. Joseph Atoyebi. I'm going to read his profile and I'm going to hand over to him shortly. Dr. Joseph Atoyebi is an associate professor in the Faculty of Arts, Business and Science at the University College of the North, the PAR campus in Manitoba, Canada. Dr. Atoyebi holds a BA and MA degree in linguistics from the University of Ilorin and the University of Ibadan. He conducted his doctoral research at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and the Universitat Leipzig. I hope I'm right. Both located in Leipzig, Germany, under the supervision of world-renowned linguistic typologist Professor Bernard Comrie and Professor Dr. Martin Haspemat, as well as the world-renowned linguist and Africanist Professor Emeritus Eckhart Wolff. Dr. Atoyebi is a co-researcher on the 7-year multi-institutional and multinational Shock Canada funded partnership on the University Plagiarism Project. He is an associate editor for Quest, an interdisciplinary quarterly from the North, and the faculty editor of Muses from the North, a journal for students at the University College of the North. Dr. Atoyebi is also an associate editor for Journal of the Linguistic Association of Nigeria and assistant editor for Journal of Nigerian Languages Project. Dr. Atoyebi's areas of focus as a linguist include language documentation, descriptive linguistics, anthropological linguistics, and linguistic typology. Thank you so much for giving us this honor of presenting this lecture. And I'm going to hand over the floor to you now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua. I am happy to be here and I'm grateful for this opportunity to also share from my research work. The work that I'll be sharing and talking about today, I know that I have time constraint and people know that I'm a fast talker as well, but you will bear with me because I have a bunch of slides to go through because, as you know from the title, it is a syntactic analysis of subtitles, which means that it has to be a practical approach to how we look at subtitles. So I will try my best to get all that done within the period so that if you have, we have enough time for questions and for answers. Thank you very much for those of our audience that are on Zoom. Thank you for joining us here today. Before I go on, I want to first of all, because I am right now at the University of Regina, so I have to do what they call the territorial acknowledgement. We also do that in my own university back in the PAR. So the University of Regina acknowledges that it stands on Treaty 4 and Treaty 6 lands, which are homeland of the Nahi Yawak and Anishinaabeg, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota peoples, and the Métis or Michif Nation. The acknowledgement recognizes this privilege and the institution's commitment to reconciliation, indigenous knowledge, and building stronger relationships with indigenous communities through research, teaching, and work. Thank you very much. Now that I have that territorial acknowledgement behind me, I can go ahead and begin to talk about my talk today. Again, it is the topic that I'm dealing with is the rendition of subtitles and in selected Yoruba movies. I know that we know a lot about the Nigerian movie industry. Everyone here on the platform, I believe, know. So there's nothing more that I want to say about the Nigerian movie industry. The idea that it's the number 3 in the world by popular knowledge It is also called the Nollywood, which is an adaptation of the American style Hollywood. It has the Yoruba arm, the Igbo arm, which also reflects the Igbo language, English language as well. Then I think the Hausas have what they call Kannywood as well, and all that and all that. But that is general knowledge that I don't want to waste much of my time talking about. I want to focus on what I have to deal with today. Nigeria is a large country, beautiful country, and with a very strong movie tradition. From the days of Kenneth Scope, where people look and peep through a hole to watch TV, to the days of the silent movies, to the days of Living in Bondage, one of Nigeria's first movies, and to the days of now that we have cinema kind of coming back again with the new world these days, where you have Nigerian movies now on Netflix, on Amazon Prime for a global audience. And that is what piqued my interest in this research, to see how we can indeed make it something that will be accepted on the global scale. And it also starts with how we subtitle the text, the language in the movies. So the main goal of this research that I also want us to pay attention to is to describe and analyze the syntactic structure of English subtitles as they are presented in some Yoruba movies. But I also want you to note, my audience to note the following. Number one, my research is not about using my skills as a linguist to malign or criticize the efforts of all hardworking subtitlers in the Nigerian movie industry. Second, the point that I really want us to take home today is just to see my own contribution to the global acceptability of the Nigerian movie industry in three important ways. Number one, to remind subtitlers, people whose job it is to subtitle the Yoruba movies, that there is no room for shoddiness in their profession. And number two is to highlight the existence of what we call Nigerianized forms of expressions in the English language, otherwise known as Nigerian English. And number three is to recommend ideal situations that can lead to creating effective subtitles for the non-Yoruba speaking audience all over the world. So with that, the goals and the scope, I begin to give a little bit of literature review on works that have been done in the area of subtitles. Now, audiovisual translation consists of three main methods: dubbing, subtitling, voice overs. But both dubbing and voiceovers are different from subtitling on the simple basis of written text. Baker and Hoschel, 798, cited in Benjamin and Brenny, they describe this subtitling as a visual involving the superimposition of a written text onto the screen. Subtitle, again, according to Diaz, 2003, is a textual representation of the dialogue and other linguistic information of the actors in the movie. Please note that subtitling is not the same as closed caption. Closed caption is voice to text. Subtitling is different. You listen and you try to translate it into the target language. On the qualities of subtitles, Gamal, 2009, makes use of the term syntactic fatigue. Okay, look at the word, underline the word syntax there, to describe the situation where the syntax of the subtitle is neither cohesive or coherent. While Chen say that two important principles of subtitles must be clarity and brevity. Now, must be brief, must be clear, the language. I teach academic writing, and some of the most important aspects of a good writing, apart from the purpose of the work, the piece of writing, is brevity, cohesion, clarity of language. If these things are not there, these elements are not there, things will be lacking. The same also applies to how subtitles are rendered in a movie. So subtitles most succinctly represent the main essence of the dialogue in a concise, meaning abridged form and clear construction, so that the listener, the person watching the movie and reading the text will get all the information that they need to understand what the story is about. With regards to relevant literature on subtitling in Nigerian movies, there is a paucity, that's a kind of a dearth of research in this aspect. The one work that I found that kind of captured it a little bit was Andrew Ali Ibi's 2014 Subtitling in the Nigerian Film Industry, Informative or Misleading. Very good work, but the work is as expected for a person who is not a professional linguist. It's easy to point out problems, but what is there and how do you really analyze these problems so that whoever is looking at these things might find a way of correcting them? So that is why my work is more of a practical approach towards identifying and analyzing the syntactic and semantic trappings that are evident in the subtitles of selected Yoruba movies. So let's talk about a brief information about the Yoruba language, especially for those who are international audience. Number one, Yoruba is one of the three major languages of Nigeria. Three of the other two are Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. There are about 45 million speakers of the language. Yoruba is both the name of the language and the term that is also used to refer to the ethnicity of the speakers of that language. Other countries in which Yoruba is indigenous include Benin Republic, Brazil, Cuba, Colombia, Sierra Leone. But it may also have different names in these places. Like, for instance, in Sierra Leone, they call them the Aku people. Aku is like from Yoruba, Aku, Eku, Aku, over time it does, And in Brazil, in 2008, I was in Brazil for a World Conference on African Linguistics, and I was fortunate to meet a group from Bahia region that sang some Yoruba songs, and you could still see that they're there. Akaraje, which we call Akara, they still call Akaraje over there, which is an over-expression, over-description of Akara. Akaraje, of course, Yoruba language is so widespread due to the transatlantic slave trade. Yoruba speakers in Nigeria are primarily found in the western region of the country. So here is a linguistic map of the Nigerian languages, and these matches were mapped from Blanche 2000, I believe, and it's still one of the most cited in terms of the distribution of the languages in the country. But if you look at the western fringes of the country, you find Yoruba there and the areas in which it covers. Southwest, Midwestern part of the country, some part. For instance, my father is from Kwara, which puts me right in the middle belt area. And I think Dr. Shola John also is from that area as well, the middle belt area. But we are Yoruba ethnicity with our different dialects. I am Ibomina by dialect, while he's open by dialect. But we still speak the common standard Yoruba, which is based on the Oyo dialect of the language. So let's talk a little bit about the English language as the language of subtitles for Yoruba movies. The English language is not just Nigeria's official language, it is also used in almost every aspect of the people's daily communication. That is said, that's granted. English language is the one unifying language in Nigeria, a country with about 550 distinct languages. Even new languages are still being discovered in Nigeria. Some languages that have been classified in the past as dialects have in recent years been discovered to be full-fledged language. Like the language I worked on for my PhD, they used to think of it as a language of the Yoruba language, but over time we've come to realize through my work that it is a full-fledged language by itself. I talk of the language of Oko or Ogori in Kogi State, Nigeria. So again, the only language available to movie producers in their effort to reach a global audience in Nigeria, especially Yoruba movie producers, remains the English language. English subtitles remain the most veritable tool for the actualization of this effort. So let's to the part 2 of this talk here and begin to address some more practical issues as they relate to today's topic. Now, according to Alan Fifth, This is a British scholar who specializes in foreign varieties of the English language. He says, and I quote, he says, what happens to this language is no longer our prerogative. English is no longer our possession. It is not a monolith. It's in an incredible state of flux, end of quote. Meaning, English is nobody's language anymore. No one can hold claim to the language. That is why English has its different varieties. We have the standard lect, which is based on the British dialect of the English language. Of course, the British dialect, I say dialect, is the standard lect, because we have the Canadian dialect of the English language, the American dialect of the English language, the Australian dialect, the Nigerian dialect, the Ghanaian dialect, the Indian dialect, in all places in which English has its own different varieties. Of course, it's no longer one person's prerogative anymore. So one of the numerous dialects of the standard English, of course, is the Nigerian English. And in recent years, we see how the Oxford English Dictionary has come to recognize that there is what we call a Nigerian English, and they have included that in their yearly dictionary. Like, for instance, if you take a word that Nigerians use a lot, they use this word severally. They will say, I called him severally, or I spoke with him severally. That is not standard English. Only a Nigerian will understand what you mean, severally. What do you mean? But so if you look in the Oxford English Dictionary, it will say Nigerian English, which means when you say something to somebody many times over, or several times. I spoke to him severally. I called him severally. Okay, so that's Nigerian English. Now, in the Nigerian movie, Moms at War, released in 2018, you find that on Netflix, directed by Omoni Opoli. There is a character in that story, in the dialogue, her name is Amara. So Amara said this, and I quote, Ma, Bayo sabotaged himself in the test. I am not going again. You find that in Moms at War at the 58th minute and the 14th second. Now, the second part of that example, I am not going again, typifies a Nigerian English construction. On the surface, a non-Nigerian English speaker will interpret the word again used in the construction as a repetition of an earlier action. However, the character Amara, who had never been to London before, so she cannot say she's not going again. So in the context, the adverbial again does not modify the act of going. Rather, it refers to an earlier agreement. That is, she is no longer agreeing with what had earlier been agreed upon by everyone in the context. So, in other words, the intended meaning of that construction for a non-Nigerian, what they really wanted to say, or what Amara wanted to say was, I am no longer agreeing to go. She had once agreed that she would go, and now that something had happened, and then she said, okay, I am no longer agreeing to go to London. She had never been to London again. But in Nigerian English, she would say, I won't go again. Just like in Yoruba, we'll say, Mi ò lọ mọ́. Have you been there before? No. But when you say Mi ò lọ mọ́, it means I am no longer agreeing to go. I've never been there before. Okay. That is a typical example of how Nigerians use the English language. And in the subtitle, that's what you see. In such a well-publicized movie, I am not going again. I won't write that subtitle that way. Because I know that my audience are not only Nigerians. There are people out there, they won't understand. The Nigerians will understand, but others will not understand. Oh, if I see that, I will say, has she been there before? She had never been. Why would she say she won't go again? Now, there are aspects of this talk that I will look at. I'll look at some redundant, non-misleading errors, and then I'll look at clear misleading errors. One of them is an example I just showed you with Amara. Okay, so let's look at the redundant ones that we can overlook in subtitles and say, oh, that's not a big issue. Does not raise a red flag. It's fine. Number one is typographic error. If you have a typographic error in a subtitle, it's fine. And the global audience may understand it because the message is still clear. For instance, in the movie Ibale, a Yoruba movie released in 2019, the subtitler had written something like, she the way she looks, she already looks like her carbon copy. Now, she the way, of course, it's a typographical. They wanted to say, see the way. Okay, see how, see the way. But it's a typography. So just a simple error there. Okay, someone might look, okay, well, all right, that's fine. I can overlook that. But look at the expression carbon copy. How many English people, users of the English language outside of Nigeria, use the word carbon copy these days? To talk about the resemblance to a person. Oh, it's still within the Nigerian English setting. Another error that we can overlook would be the choice of tenses. Tenses. Sometimes we know that tenses they play a crucial role in our understanding of a sentence, especially with regards to time reference. But sometimes tense may become redundant when dealing with subtitles. For instance, in the movie Aliomoba, someone had said something like, I will be there till the end of next month. And someone had said something like, let me check it. I would call you back immediately if I've seen it. Now, these sentences are not reported speeches. They are supposed to be in the future tense, not in the past future. So instead of saying I would, it's I will be there, I'll be there next week. So like I'm reporting something that had happened. So this can be, it's really not so much misleading. It's just the use of the wrong tense, but the idea is still clear. So I will still allow that to pass. Okay? Mm-hmm. Also, another redundant thing you can find in the subtitle will be things relating to punctuations, missing punctuation marks. For instance, in the sentence, in the expression from Ibali, that house is too expensive for 16 million, period. At most, they should accept 11 million. So there is a missing comma in the second clause, which is started by an introductory, a signal phrase. At most, comma, so comma is fine. Everyone will understand. Or in the second example, I told them I will pay 10 million. I increased it to 11 million, and they still declined. So you have a first clause, which normally you use a semicolon there because that's a compound construction where you have three independent clauses. I told them I would pay 10 million, put a semicolon. I increased it to 11 million, put a comma because the next clause is introduced by a coordinating conjunction and then it has a subject itself. Hey, you'll be fine with that, okay? Something like that. Missing punctuation marks, the idea is still clear. It's fine, we can let that fly. But then we move to what we call apparent grammatical and semantic errors, which will mislead viewers. Now, this, to some extent, you may say, I don't think that's misleading enough. It's left to you. In my own case, I look at that. So there might be a little bit of argument here and there. Maybe it's misleading enough or not. But I'll try and make the case here for these misleading ones. Number one, misleading subtitles involving verbs or verbal expressions. For instance, someone says in this movie, Barimu, you cannot go ahead of your destiny. Go ahead. Wow. This construction, I believe, is misleading. Number one, the collocative relationship that exists between the verb go and its phrasal particle ahead does not indicate a race-like or competitive sense. The verb go and its particle ahead combine better when used in an imperative or declarative construction. I will explain what I mean. So where one person orders instructs the other to go ahead in a non-competitive movement towards the goal. If I say, like in this context, you cannot go ahead of your destiny, it doesn't sound that so much competitive. But if the idea is that you want a situation where someone appears to be competing with their destiny, so you have to use the appropriate verb. You cannot get ahead of your destiny. That sounds more competitive, more aggressive than you can go ahead of. You see, it's lighter. So someone might be wondering, destiny is a person who, what does that even mean? So yeah, I would say that I really push the envelope here with regards to whether this is misleading or not. I think the verb is inappropriate. It does not really convey the semantic sense that the the story, the dialogue itself really intended to convey. It is just a mistake or a lack of skill on the side of the subtitler. Someone says, another example of that is found in Iya Ọjà Oníjìbìtì. Someone says this in the story. The translator, the subtitler wrote the following: May you also meet your helper and not witness kidney problem. Not witness. Wow. What not witness kidney problem? The misleading element in the subtitle is the not witness. What do you mean? The verb is wrong. The verb here is wrong. So it destroys the intended meaning of the construction. The petitioner's request is that the benefactor be spared the agony of kidney disease. So a more appropriate verbal expression in the context will be something like not experience, may you not experience kidney problem, may you not be a victim of, may you not be afflicted with. Okay, so a rendering of that subtitle will read like, may you also meet your helper and not experience kidney problem, something like that, but not witness. It is completely off. Okay, you know, witness. May you not see. Because in the Yoruba language, the idea is, may you not see, which is of course like witness. See is different from experience, be afflicted with. The idea of the subtitler is growing from the vision verb, using the vision verb in the place where they could have used a feeling kind of verb. So that's where the thing is confusing or misleading. There are also issues with negation. Negations are where you bring a not into an idea, a discourse. So the absence of a relevant negative marker in a subtitle can result in a misleading expression. Take, for instance, in Arino, released in 2019, someone said this, the subtitler wrote this down. Am I the only one at fault that we can bear a child? What do you want to say? Am I the only one at fault that we can bear a child? The person watching the movie will like, wait, did they have a child already? No, they have never had a child. The negation, the negative marker is missing. They wanted to say, am I the only one at fault that by our inability to bear a child, or that we cannot bear a child? They said that we can bear a child. No, they wanted to say that am I the only one at fault that we are unable to have children? That's what they wanted to say. So the subtitler missed that. And if you're watching the movie, non-Yoruba speaker, and you see that, you read that, you're confused. You may lose the trend of the dialogue. Also, there is some other semantic element that may also lead to misleading expressions. The use of ask versus tell. Okay, ask versus tell. The semantic difference between these two verbs, ask and tell, sometimes poses a challenge to second language speakers of English language, especially because of Yoruba people. They cannot seem to differentiate between these two verbs, ask and tell. Yoruba speakers of English often tend to use the verb to tell, even in all situations that involve tell and ask. So they use only tell for all. And I hear that a lot among Nigerian speakers of the English language. I told you, instead of I asked you, they use tell like an umbrella verb there. For instance, in Ibale, I told him to be patient. See, that sounds aggressive. You are supposed to be petitioning, appeasing a person, not confronting them. Why would you use tell? Tell is more confrontational than ask. In the context, they wanted to be appeasing, to appease the person. So I told him to be patient, that I don't have yet. And he started raising his voice. Or when you get to the filling station, okay, you see my sick there, that's how the subtitler wrote it. Filling station. Filling station. Tell them you are going to Elder Father Bond's house. Again, my presentation today is not to criticize, it's to critique. In academic, we critique, we don't criticize. We look at the areas of your strength and the areas of your weaknesses in order that you might improve. Criticize is where you only focus on destroying a person. We don't do that because it's not helping anybody. So please, let's accept that. And I'm pointing this out so that, because I will tell you again the rationale again behind all this as we come to the end of the talk. I asked them, you could easily have said, I asked him to be patient and that I did not have it, but he started raising his voice. When you get to the filling station, correct spelling now, ask anyone, not tell anyone you're tell somebody you're going to end up about. I'm telling you, but because that's Yoruba, they will allow you, they will show you the place. But no, you ask, and then they will give you directions to Elder Father Bond's house. Okay. Prepositions. So the difference is between the directive versus the locative. So you have the directive to versus the locative on or in. So the misuse of prepositions may also lead to misunderstanding of the subtitle by non-Yoruba speakers audience. For instance, in the movie Baremu, someone said, in my lineage, we place a lot of value to 18th birthdays. To 18th birthdays. We place to. We place and to. They're using the directive to instead of the locative. Because the essence is the Yoruba language, the verb, the see. We do the see, after combined see. So they take the see, which is to, and they bring it into the subtitle, which destroys the whole thing. Or whoever involves the police to a matter. You involve a person to or in. Yeah. Okay. So we can see how prepositions too can lead to misleading expressions. Let's look at the order of the constituents of a phrase, possessive. The order in which constituents of a phrase, especially a noun phrase, which we occur will determine whether the statement is misleading or not. For instance, if a modifier occurs in the wrong position in relation to the modified, the situation will result in ungrammaticality, as it may also be misleading. So, if, for instance, someone says in ballet, if I slap you with both hands, if I slap you with my both hands, okay, you will see palm signs. Wow. I slap you with my both hands, you will see palm signs. Where is it? Where is the palm signs? What the person wanted to say is, if I slap you with both my hands, look at the switching of the constituents of that phrase, both my hands, you will see the impression of my palms on your face. Now it's clear that if I do this palm and I left it, you will go look in the mirror, you will see. But if I say, you will see my palm, it's just completely not hitting the target as you would want it to. Okay. Subjectless clauses. I believe in the next 5 minutes I should be done talking. Subjectless clauses. So a subjectless clause can lead to misleading subtitle. For instance, in Barimu, someone says, the subtitler, I keep saying someone says, no, it's the subtitler I'm dealing with. The subtitler says, if you don't stop, what's that word now? I don't know what to even call it. I think they wanted to say hiding. If you don't stop hiding, money will send you away. Who will send you away? We do not have the subject. The subject is missing. What they wanted to say is, if you don't stop hiding money, I will send you away. You can't even say that the subject here is implied because this is not the context. Implied subject usually works with when a second person is involved. Go. If I say go, it's implied that I am saying you go. But in this case, it's not even implied. Who will? It's not clear. Maybe somebody else will send you away. Where is the subject? Subject is missing. Subject needs to be there. That clause needs a subject. In syntax, we call something case filter. in which it says every clause deserves a subject. You need to have a subject, whether overt or covert, but if it's a covert subject, it must be understood by both the people, the interlocutors in the conversation, who the subject is. In this case, it's not clear, so it could be misleading. Attribution. Attributing a profession or identity to the wrong character. In Yao LGBT, the subtitler wrote, a friend of ours is in the hospital. She wants to perform a surgery. Now, this is critical. This is critically misleading. Your friend is in the hospital. That friend wants to perform a surgery. No. That means you are saying that that friend is a doctor, the surgeon. But that's not what they wanted to say. That's not what they're saying in the story. They're saying that they have a friend who has a problem and they need money to pay the hospital bills for surgical operation to be performed on that person. But the way they rendered it, it sounded like that person is the doctor. Absolutely misleading. Critical. Argument. So a subject can misleading the argument of a verb are placed in the wrong positions of the verb. For instance, in Young LGBT again, say we have found someone that will donate her a kidney. Now, someone can understand what they wanted to say. I know many speakers of the English language because I also have qualification as an ESL instructor. So I have taught ESL in several colleges in this country. And I know some people who come from the Middle East, they also have this kind of problem. I will donate you my house. Because they also say, I will give you my house. They use the verbs like donate, contribute. I will contribute you my money. And so that I contribute my money to you. They do that. They apply it across board. So it's not usually just a Nigerian problem, but I wish that our subtitlers could do better when it comes to this. Antecedent. If someone walked up to you, harassed you, and this has to do with pronouns, and gave her money, what will you do? Now, this one is completely like, what are you saying? Because where is the pronoun? You know, there is a disconnect. Antecedent, between the pronoun and this antecedent, there is no connection. Two ways you could say it. If someone walked up to you, harassed you, and pressured you into giving her money, what would you do? Or if a woman walked up to you, harassed you, and pressured you into giving her money, what would you do? No connection in antecedents. Final remarks. I'm almost there. Okay. There is no doubt that the art of adding subtitled translations to movies is rewarding and also challenging. But it requires the expertise in the field of translation studies, proficiency in both the source and the target languages. It requires a knowledge of linguistics, especially in the area of syntax and semantics. These skills are necessary in order to concisely map and structure the source language to the target language without impeding meaning. Admittedly, we will be hard-pressed to find an individual with all three abilities, a person who is translator, native speaker, and linguist. The way out of the problem, for me, will be to treat any subtitle project or subtitling project as a team effort. So let's look at the following permutations. Number one, ideal situation is this, where you have this, the subtitler is a translation expert, is a native speaker and near native speaker of both languages, English and Yoruba, and is also a linguist. Ideal. But where will you find such a person? I am not that person. Because where I fail is I am not a translation expert. Another fair situation, this is where I fall as a person, is where the subtitler is not a translation expert, but the subtitler has equal proficiency in both languages and is also a linguist. Yeah, I, for one, would fall in that place. The third situation, which is a problematic one, but somewhat manageable. The person is a translation expert, the person has proficiency in both languages, but the person is not a linguist. It's okay, because people who do translation studies also take some courses in linguistics. So they will be somehow able to manage. But some of the very deep things in terms of semantics, they may not know it. Okay. But here's a bad situation. This is the bad situation is what we see in those movies that I showed you. The examples that I showed, that's the bad situation. You just found somebody off the street, they claim they speak Yoruba and they speak English, and they said they can do translation for you. They are neither linguists nor expert translators. That's where you have problems. That's a bad situation. This one is even impossible. I'm a translation expert. Can you speak Yoruba? No. Are you a linguist? No. This is impossible. Forget about this job. Forget applying for this job. Forget about applying for this job. Another one is another impossible situation. I am a linguist, yes, but do you speak Yoruba? A linguist does not mean that you speak all languages. You are just an expert on how languages work. You need to have a proficiency in the language that you want to work with. Okay, now here is the thing that I think every movie maker, especially now with Nigerian movies, especially Yoruba movies going to Netflix. I like people like Afolabi. That guy does not spare expenses when doing movies. But I think people like that should also consider things like this. Your subtitle should be a teamwork. It's a project. You got to have people. We say things like 2 heads are always better than 1. So here's the situation that I think any movie maker should want to consider. Number one, you have a situation where you have a translation expert, a native language speakers of both languages, maybe not the language is okay. The other subtitle 2 will cover for that. You would have that there, and then your 4. So what happens? You see that I believe that for every movie project, especially now that Yoruba movies are going global and big, there should be clear budget assigned to this. It should be a teamwork. Get this. Don't make one person sit down. No. If you hire me, I will hire more people so that we make it what it should be. Finally, as Yoruba movie producers and directors continue to contend for space in the already saturated world of home videos and cinemas, it is paramount that invest more in the area of subtitling. The audience's patience will wear thin if the subtitles that accompany movies are misleading, irrespective of the quality of the video or the plot of the story. I know a friend who is from Rivers State. He once said to me some years ago, he's from Rivers State, Nigeria. He said, I love Yoruba movies more than the English movies. I said, why? He said, the Yoruba movies have better storyline. And I thought, he knows he does not speak Yoruba, but he enjoyed watching Yoruba movies because he said they have better storyline. And since that is the case, there are a lot of people out there who want to watch their movies. They should do more with their subtitles. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow, thank you very much, Dr. Afolabi. As we were speaking in my film production class, one of the first things, there are 2 things I wouldn't forget.
Yes.
One is that there's no motion in motion picture. There's only an illusion of motion. But the second one is that the idea of cinematography is writing with pictures. Meaning, even if you don't speak a particular language, you should be able to watch a movie, understand what the movie is all about, and enjoy it. So subtitling is supposed to kind of increase, permit me, if I must use the word, heighten the pleasure of watching a movie, because it adds to your understanding of what the picture is talking about. Yes. But like every other part of the movie industry, professionalism has not been fully instituted, and therefore you have one person
in some countries.
Yes. Thank you very much. Especially in the context you are speaking right now, you have one person playing multiple roles because you have low budget movies, and so for that reason, I sometimes feel translation or subtitling happen when the editor offers to have more money to subtitle, and then he gets anybody to just do that. And sometimes I read the subtitling. I hate reading subtitling because it's sometimes very frustrating.
Yes,
because it's
syntactic fatigue.
It's just syntactic fatigue. You don't get to enjoy it. I'm beginning to think that we need to connect you to the industry so that we can have we have a translator, a French translator that is watching 1 or 2 things. Well, let's have questions from you or maybe contribution. I know we have Dr. Afolabi, we have Dr. Adeba, sorry. We will need to kind of connect you to the industry and then see how things can work. Dr. Abayomi Adebamigbe is also here, and we also have a translator in French who is also here, Dr. Afolabi. Let's hear from you, please. If you have any question or any question for our presenter or maybe contribution.
Taiwo has a question.
I'll quickly chime in here before I head out for my other things here. Thank you for the presentation, and it's highly technical and very specific. So and I love the way you kind of break it down. I think I have two questions. One is a question around methodology. What methodology do you use from a research standpoint? Like, do you use like software to do this? Any like what tool do you use to do the breakdown? And then once you do that, do you then do like a textual analysis? I just want to hear more about the methodology. And then the second part is really thinking about the interplay of translation and transliteration within the context of the closed captioning. So I'm thinking, for example, if somebody's speaking the primary language, the original language in Yoruba, for example, and then the closed caption or the caption, the live, translating that to English, how might that affect the meaning making at the end of the day? Those are my two bucket of questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. The first one with regards to methodology. The output that I took to doing this, because I'm doing an analysis, as a linguist, one of the things that we usually do, because if you look at my background is in descriptive linguistics, so you look at the language as it is, raw as it is, and you begin to map it using theoretical linguistic tools to just explain what is going on. So what I did with data collection, of course, would be to sit back and watch these movies and sample the ones and look at the subtitles or the ones that I want to do, begin to look at problems that I may have, isolate those ones and bring them into my linguistic framework to explain the things going on here. So I use I'm a descriptive linguist. I also have a background in theoretical linguistics as well, in which we use some theoretical framework to explain. But descriptive linguist today is the one that really has a human face. Because if I use a theoretical linguistic approach now, nobody here will understand anything that I'm saying. So, but descriptive linguistics allow people who are non-linguists to be able to relate to our subject. Okay, so I will leave that and go to the next question. And then let me know if, of course, you're pleased with that already or satisfied. The closed captioning, for instance, it's voice to text. In the Yoruba movies that we watch, we don't do closed caption, because if we do closed caption, it will mean that when they speak Yoruba, it will be written in Yoruba as well. The text that you see on the screen will also be written in Yoruba language. But the thing that we do is translation, which is this subtitle, and we try to use our understanding of, whatever understanding we have. We are proficient in the Nigerian English, for sure. Like I said, with the Omoni Oboli's Wives at War or Moms at War, a normal Nigerian understands the Nigerian English, but the Nigerian English does not equate the global English. So that is where the challenge now lies for the subtitler to ensure that whatever they are casting on the screen there as the subtitle will reflect something that anyone anywhere in the world will be able to relate with. Otherwise, you lose them. And so that's the whole point of this.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Afolabi. I hope that answers your questions.
It does. I wish I had more. I don't want to take up the entire. I know Professor Afolabi is here and is the French. Maybe you have question, Professor Biomitu is here, but I'll pass it to them. I still have. It kind of raises more questions for me, but let me pass it to them. I think it's an exciting theme that really fascinating how you kind of position and kind of frame the discourse. I appreciate it. Thank you. I keep it. Yeah, I'll pass it on to the next person.
Well, if I may come in.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. That was a brilliant lecture. I really enjoyed myself. And I too have been interested in this subject of subtitling in Nigerian movies, because there are quite a number of problems, that I usually encounter, when watching movies. Wrong grammar, syntactic problems like you have expressed. But meanwhile, what I was expecting here today, I thought we would talk about is it translation or transliteration of idiomatic expressions, proverbs, because that's where most Yoruba movies run into trouble, and meanings along the line, get lost or get watered down, such that you'll be wondering, what is this man trying to say? It's only for those who speak Yoruba language. And we just set aside the subtitling so that we can just listen to pure Yoruba. But then it looks like maybe your topic did not cover that aspect. So another thing has to do with this question of variety of English. Yoruba, the Nigerian English, and the global English. For me, I believe the Nigerian version of English, the movie industry provides an avenue for the Nigerian version of English to be popularized, to be made. People should, there's a way we can force it on people so that they get to know that there is another variety of English. So I think generally I enjoyed the lecture, and I must say, good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me respond to your first observation. Yes, absolutely. That is a topic for another day, okay? Whereby we begin to see how idioms, proverbs, wise sayings of the elders, or how are they included in subtitles in such a way that the people out there would still be able to get the kernel of the message. That is the one that I'm dealing with at this point. Is just the foundation on the everyday language. Then if we go to that level, that one will be something else. I remember recently in my class, I was teaching a writing course, and I had said something which was one of our wise sayings in the Yoruba culture. Something like, "Ọ̀run yabo kì í ṣọ̀rọ̀ ẹnìkan." How do I translate this to my students? That idea was running in my head. And what led to that? I was teaching on a topic on how to punctuate transition phrases in writing. And that idea just came in my head right there in the classroom. And I was looking at it. Then my little girl, she was about 4 or 5. She didn't go to school that day. I think, because her school, sorry, I'm taking some time here. Her school was that day, that kind of school where you go every other day. So she was like 5. So I was in the classroom that day, and I said, and I wrote on the board, I gave this example. For instance, this is a signal kind of expression, a leading expression, where you have a condition. If the sky were to fall, so I was trying to translate "Ọ̀run yabo kì í ṣọ̀rọ̀ ẹnìkan." If the sky were to fall, or the heavens were to fall, comma, you need a comma after that signal phrase or the introductory element. It is not going to be one person's problem. And I said that. But the look on the faces of the students, by the look, they were like, they still did not get it.
They didn't get it.
So that is a different level. And why did I involve my little girl here? The reason I involved her was that when I asked the student, I said, right, do you guys believe that? If the sky were to fall, is it going to be one person's problem? And they were all looking at me. My girl, Danielle, she was sitting at the back and she just said, of course not. And I was like, keep quiet. I felt very embarrassed. That's why I cannot forget that day. Yeah, so it's a different, more research will go into that. But then, of course, I think again, like I said there, that if anybody is doing these movies, they should try and get people who stick together as a team and find the best way to represent these things in such a way that people can relate with. And I also like your second point about the fact that, look, we have come to agree that there's Nigerian English, and the world out there would have to, like we force it on them, forced in quote. It is good. It's a good approach. Like they did to us too. We had to do the British English, but in the meantime, it's not going to be something that we force on them at once. I think we can do that gradually and recognize the fact that we may not have them so much, but with time. Like for instance now, the Oxford Dictionary, finally, they begin to recognize that we have our ways of saying things, which they call Nigerian English. And it took so many years, but finally we are here. And I think that gradually also, we'll come to a point where you're watching a Nigerian movie, your brain switches immediately to the Nigerian English in order to understand the Nigerian movie.
All right, thank you very much. We still have somebody?
Yes,
Yeah,
Professor Afolabi has a hand
Okay,
raised.
thank you very much, Professor Afolabi.
Thank you very much, sir. And congratulations indeed, Dr. Atoyebi, for that very brilliant presentation. I am particularly intrigued by the information, the analysis from the point of view of a translation teacher that I am, and also a translator. I particularly like your disclaimer at the beginning that the intention or the objective of your study is not to criticize the subtitlers, but rather to critique, because there's always room for improvement. So I think that is a good approach. I was looking forward to seeing in your analysis, a kind of juxtaposition of the source text and the target text, which will have made, listeners to, especially those that are versed in the two languages, to really see where you are coming from. But we only saw the subtitle that you brought out, the extras. We didn't see the transcription, or so to say, of what the source text was in Yoruba language. Having the two will have helped. I know it may not make sense to those who don't understand Yoruba, but for those who understand, it will have helped us to understand better and appreciate your analysis. So maybe you want to consider that in developing the work. But generally, I really love it. And maybe after this presentation, I would love to be in touch so that I can learn more from you, because you have opened my eyes to see a lot of things on a particular project I'm working on, talking about Nollywood in translation and translation in Nollywood, though using English and French, not Yoruba and English. But that will help. I think I will get in touch with you. Now, my concern is actually going to be from the pedagogical implication of your study. The big question that I ask as I listen to you is, who are the subtitlers? Who are they? Dr. John mentioned professionalism. Are they professionals? Are they trained? If they are trained, on what are they trained? And you'll be surprised, sir, to realize that the subtitlers are not humans, especially in this age of AI, in this age of machine translation. I think somebody also mentioned the aspect of budget. Producers not having enough money, so they go for the cheap route. They go for the cheaper services. They don't approach human translators. They don't want to spend money on that, so they go to Google Translate. And Google Translate, is garbage in, garbage out. There is Nigerian language, Nigerian English, even in Google Translate today. So you discover that is what most of them are using, which is bad market, to put it again in another, Nigerian English. So my suggestion would be professionalization of audiovisual translation. That is retraining for those who are doing it. In Nigerian universities, I know some English department, Yoruba department, even French department, they have courses in translation, but they only teach literary translation. They teach general translation. They don't have the technical aspect, the practical aspect of translation, especially there's a course we call audiovisual translation. I happen to analyze some syllabus, some curricula, some universities, about 11 of them for my PhD thesis. You will see that none of them has audiovisual translation in their translation programs, which is very, very important. So my suggestion is that Nigerian universities begin to integrate into their translation programs for those who have a course that we call audiovisual translation, and that producers should try as much as possible to reach out to this. There are not many, but with time, we can have a pool of them that can be contacted for these services, and let us stop relying on machine translation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all the contributions. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dr. Afolabi, for the presentation. It's been quite engaging. And on the 28th of November, we are going to have another talk, and it's going to be on resilience. Something around emotional intelligence. And we promise you from now running till about May next year, we're going to be having a monthly presentation. Once again, we really appreciate you, sir, for this engaging and thoughtful presentation. Thank you. I hope the feedbacks have been, we help reach the work, and then where we look forward to further collaboration. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, 1 hour. I'm not unable to respond to anything you said there, but thank you.
Just 1 hour, and the time is up. We appreciate to see you November 28th.
You have been listening to Global Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the center, visit www.cset.ca.